Hello everybody, it is time for another vlog. We're about to get into like the busy season of the year, and there's a lot of stuff happening, and we're changing some of the way that we're doing things on the channel, so it's just, once again, I like to keep you guys updated on whatever things, happening, and how it's happening, and when it's happening, and all that. So I figured now's the perfect time for another one of these. So, game in the background is Skyforge. We'll talk about that in a minute. Very important stuff there. However, just at this point in time, you can actually, if you like the background footage before I, even get into talking about the game, you could go and download it for free right now. So there you go. I love giving you guys free stuff, right? So it's one of those free-to-play MMO games, and it's actually pretty cool. We'll talk about it. So first thing, we're going to be kind of changing the way that we're doing the channel, and this was after looking at a lot of analytical data lately, and just kind of analyzing the past year, and also just looking at how certain series are doing. So first things first, right? I now get that the RPGs, like the big RPGs, Witcher, Dragon Age, soon to be Fallout 4, they're tough to do because I like to do a lot of the stuff in the game. However, I also am well aware that it takes a long time to get through those series. Dragon Age Inquisition launched in November last year, and it is about to, be November again. So it's been a year of doing this series. So, first things first, we're just going to get Dragon Age done by November. Those of you who know how much content is left will know that that is a big feat, but we're just going to get it done, which that might mean doing more episodes a week and just really pushing it out there, because we got to get through the Jaws of Hack-On DLC, which is coming up next in the series. Then we have to get through the rest of the game, then do Descent, and then do Trespasser. So it's a lot of content, but we're just going to push it out there and get her done. Next is the fact that Tomb Raider is actually doing pretty well for itself. Now, you gotta remember, I just recorded that and got it done, and that was a fun little series, and what it made me realize is that we need more of that on the channel. So from here on forth, we're gonna kind of combine our RPG series with small little games. And, Tomb Raider is a good example of this because it's a fairly short game, but it's a condensed, really good story. If you look at games that came out recently, that would be really good in this category, is stuff like Transistor, stuff like, oh gosh, what's the name? Dying Light. That was a pretty cool little game that came out earlier this year and surprised me and Garrick. It was really good, but we never did a series on it, and I regret that because it was really good. Like Transistor, Bastion, those kind of games. Upcoming for stuff like that, we have ideas of what we want to do, but like any story-driven condensed game that's within 2 to 20 hours long are the kind of games that I just want to record in 1 or 2 sittings, or probably more than that, like 4 or 5 sittings, and then just the new idea behind it, because right now Tomb Raider comes out on the weekends, but the new idea behind doing these shorter series is just to record the entire series and then to put it out every single day, just boom, 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 and do 2 episodes of stuff, right? So some days you'll see Dragon Age, and then you'll see Tomb Raider stuff on the same day, right? As an example. That's kind of our new idea. So I want to pair the longer playthroughs that we're doing, and Star Wars is coming up with that again, and then just put an episode of these shorter games out every single day. So the people who are really interested in those shorter games, especially the new ones that are coming out, of which I will give you a few examples coming up here shortly, they can really enjoy that series and just binge on it, because there'll be an episode every single day until it's done. And it won't last more than a couple weeks at that rate, right? Because they're short games. So I think that that's probably the best way to do that going forth. So that's what we're gonna try to do. And I have a few ideas for games that I'll talk about in a minute for that. And here's the thing: I really want your guys' opinion on what games we should do. If you have older games that are about 2 to 20 hours long, let me know, and we could do a playthrough of it. I just had a game pop in my head. I could do, oh gosh, what was the name of the game, though? I don't even remember the name of it. Okay, I'll remember it here shortly, because I'm totally pulling up Steam and looking at it. But there are games coming really soon that I want to talk about. Obviously, the first is SWTOR, right? SWTOR comes out in October, the new expansion. Now, I already have an idea of what character I'm doing. I will give you a hint. It is a character that we have done a series on before, but it won't be like that week that it releases, that the series starts. No, because I need to go through and I actually need to play through the game first, like through the story first, so I kind of have an idea of what the story's like, so that way I could take it and really run with it. Just as a, you know, as an example, like with the warrior story, when we did that on the channel, I had already played the warrior story, which made the story a lot better because I know how I wanted to build the character and all of that. Antechamber, that's the name of the game. There we go. So like Antechamber would be another good example. It's a small little puzzle game that I could do, and it's really, really freaking cool. Would only take about an hour or two to do. Maybe I'll actually do that recent. I don't know. We'll see the response on that. But, you know, if you guys have any games like that are small, short, condensed, but really story-driven and very focused, I want your ideas. So, Star Wars is coming up. I need to play through it with the Bounty Hunter first. I'm going to get the idea of the story. Then we're going to put together an amazing series. Like, we haven't done a Star Wars series in a while, but I have definitely become a lot better at what I do. So, get ready to hold on to your butts, because it is going to be one of the best things that we've done on the channel. It's going to be amazing. And trust me, I already have an idea of the character and how the story is going to roll out and how it's going to tie into the previous stuff we did. It is amazing. So I get a lot of comments asking, are you ever going to do Star Wars again? It's like, obviously you haven't been listening to any of the vlogs that we've put out over the past few months. Of course I'm going to. It's going to be amazing. And I'm actually really curious how the story is going to roll out in their different chapters and all that stuff. So that series may end up being like Dragon Age or Witcher, where it rolls out over a long period of time, and then we have a shorter series rolling on top of it to keep everybody interested. So there's that. Now, I did want to briefly talk about The Witcher, because that was on my list and I kind of skipped over it. That's another long-form RPG that we're currently playing through, and I would like to get it done as soon as possible. So what I might end up doing with that is just kind of skipping as much side stuff as possible and just focusing on the main story and just getting that done as well. Maybe getting that done before the end of the year, but it's unlikely that I'll get it done before Fallout 4, which we'll talk about. Now let's talk about Skyforge, right? Because it's a game in the background and it probably looks fairly interesting. This is a game that I got invited to the beta earlier this year, and I played it for quite a few hours, and I really enjoyed it. I was like, oh, this got a cool concept, and I like the combat. The combat reminds me a lot of DC Universe, but kind of, you know, more updated. And the fact that it's like DC Universe meets WildStar, which I like both of those games, so it's perfect, right? WildStar, that's another game we're going to talk about soon. But Skyforge is, in particular, really complex, right? So when I first started playing it a few months ago, I really enjoyed it. However, like it was either a new Diablo season we're starting or something really cool is happening in Heroes of the Storm. It was something like that. And I got distracted. So I started playing those games and I never went back to it. But recently I got contacted, this is full disclosure, got contacted by Skyforge, the company, and they asked if I would like to do guides on it. And being someone who knew that the game was fairly complex, but knowing how busy the next part of my year is going to be, I said, I'll take a look at it and maybe we'll do some beginner stuff, but I can't promise anything. So I get Garrick and a few of the other guys, you know, from the channel to download it and start playing it with me. And before we know it, we're absolutely freaking hooked on this game. It's at a certain point that the game really starts to hook you, and it's when you realize that there are more than 3 classes, right? Because you start with 3 classes, but then you go through this like crazy sphere grid. Don't worry, I'm going to put up a video real soon explaining how the game works, so if you really wanted to try it out, it will be a really good game to play, you know, until the fall when everything starts coming out. So it'll be a good distraction for you guys, and I'll put up a video describing everything. But basically there's a massive sphere grid, and when you get to a certain point you can unlock other classes. They have like a monk, a gunner, and the game itself is set in this really cool like magic meets sci-fi world. It's like super technologically advanced, but it's also got magic and stuff. It's really cool. And like I said, they contacted me. They said, "Do you want to make a couple guides?" And when I said yes, like I said, I meant I'd only do maybe 1 or 2 videos, and we'll see from there. And then when we started playing and we got absolutely hooked on it, it made me realize that, you know what, this game does deserve the amount of, you know, tutorial content that it should have to kind of keep new players interested and explain some of these really complex systems that are really cool but also really complex. So that way, you know, new players can feel comfortable in the game and really get the most out of it, because it is really freaking cool. So I'm not getting like any money from them. I'm not accepting any money, but what will happen is the guides will be posted very publicly, and that only means good things for you guys, because that means that the channel grows a lot more. So I'm going to do a fairly meaty guide series. It's not going to be as long as Star Wars, because Star Wars was kind of like the ABCs of MMOs. We don't need to do that, but what will then happen is a fairly huge chunk of guides, just so you're aware. So that's coming up pretty soon. Like I said, I have the video going to describe what the heck Skyforge is, kind of introduce it to you guys, and then I'm going to put out a ton of guides, which will happen within the next few weeks. And then that'll be kind of that. I'll take a look at the content as it comes out and as they update the game. But the guides are going to be the main focus on that. And once the guides are done, I'll just keep them updated, and then that's basically it. However, I will say that I really do like the game, and I do plan on playing it. However, that's also dependent on other things happening in the gaming world, right? Because like I said, we're about to get into this crazy busy season. WildStar goes free to play at the end of the month, and I want to take a look at their free to play system and do a couple of guides on that, because I really do like WildStar. But just with all the games coming out this year, it's going to be hard for me to focus on MMOs aside from doing the Star Wars story content, which that's kind of I record that all at once anyways, and it does take up a lot of time to do that, by the way. I did want to mention that I don't think you realize how much time goes into making those story series for Star Wars. It's roughly 4 to 8 hours per video. Like, if you equate all of the time that I put into the entire series, it boils down to roughly 4 to 8 hours per episode, and that's a lot of time. So I did want to quickly mention that we're really considering at this point doing a Patreon, which, if you don't know what Patreon is, it's kind of like you help support the channel by, you know, giving a little bit of money, not a lot, and what ends up happening is you get little bonuses from that. But for the most part, you're funding very specific stuff. Like, it would, if we did a Patreon, we would have something very specific for Star Wars, like, you know, goals of if we reach this amount of funding, we would do like this really cool thing, and it would just continue to get cooler as it goes, just so that if for whatever reason someone really wanted to fund the Star Wars series, they could get a lot out of it, basically. But, you know, ad revenue, just being completely honest right now, for YouTube has been really bad this year, and it's kind of picking up, but it's still kind of bad. So we're looking at other ways of generating revenue, and Patreon would be a good way to generate specific revenue based on desires of what you guys want to see, like I said. So I would do very specific Star Wars content for, you know, what's upcoming on that series. Maybe do a couple like more written stuff, because we did that Trellis of the Eidolon for the agent, and that was really cool, but it would be cool to do something a bit better than that. But all this, like I said, it's 4 to 8 hours an episode, and that's a lot of time to put in there to get as little out as we do. So we're considering that. Let me know if you're interested in that at all. I mean, we've had a funding thing on YouTube for a while. It pops up at the beginning of every video in the top right, and, you know, people have used that before, and we thank you for that. But it's not very public, even though it pops up on every video. People don't notice it. So maybe a Patreon would be kind of a good idea. I don't know. Let me know if that at all interest you. Okay, let's talk about upcoming stuff, because this is the more exciting thing, because we have so many good games coming out this year. This is clearly the best year in video games because of how many cool things that we've gotten thus far and how many cool things are coming out towards the end of the year. So coming into the end of September, like I said, we're going to do the WildStar stuff. We got Skyforge coming up. We have Star Wars. We're finishing up Tomb Raider, and then early next year we're doing the new game. But that's more on the horizon. Then we have all of the Dragon Age DLC coming up, of which they finished making the Dragon Age DLC. So any DLC that we play through is stuff that they've already put out. But basically it's new content, right? So we're going to play through all that. But new games, these are like questionable games. Like I kind of want to do something on Rainbow Six Siege, which the beta starts next week. It's really soon. So maybe we'll do a few things on that. We'll likely just stream it, however. But because we're moving into October, we've been considering scary games. I think the Alien series was probably the best thing, like funny-wise and entertainment-wise, that I've put out, like ever. Going back and watching it, I still really enjoy that series. I think it came out good. There were a few technical hiccups that we've been able to overcome, like the fact that we had a delay because Six and Garrick were watching over a stream, but the stream had a 10-second delay, so they saw things 10 seconds later. Well, that's now no longer the case with some of the new stuff that we have, so it's almost instant of when they see it compared to when I see it. So we've been thinking about more scary or thriller kind of games. So Adrift comes to mind, which comes out soon, which is the space game that is kind of like the movie Gravity, where things have gone wrong and you have to survive in space. So we've been considering that one because it looks gorgeous and amazing. But there's also like Soma, and there's a couple other scary games coming out in October. Again, that would be we record it all at once, and then we put out an episode a day, just so you get one week of an entire like series, but paired up with everything else that we're already doing anyway, so it doesn't disrupt that. So basically, we're just doubling the output of our videos. Now, other things coming out real soon that need attention is like Battlefront. We'll probably do some stuff on Battlefront because it's Star Wars, it's pretty cool, right? But it won't be like a long going series. It'll just be, a few videos on that as the beta opens up. And then we have Civilization Rising Tides. It's the Beyond Earth expansion, which seems to be changing the game significantly for the good, kind of the way that Gods and Kings did for Civ 5. So Six and I will probably take a look at that, just throwing that out there. We never did take a look at Beyond Earth, but it was because the game wasn't all that great, and now that the expansion is fixing a lot of that stuff, might be time to take a look at it. Then we have a thing that Six actually suggested to me, because I asked him for suggestions, like, okay, what are short games that we could just burst through and put an episode out every week? And he mentioned StarCraft 2, and at first I was like, but that's a single-player game, you retard. But then I realized, no, they have the new Allied Commander mode through the single-player, so you can play two-player single-player, like co-op single-player. And from the looks of it, we're going to be getting an entire series throughout... oh gosh, what's the first game name? Look, the first game, Heart of the Swarm, and then Legacy of the Void. So it looks like you'll be able to play through the entire story of all three of the games, but do it as Allied Commander mode. So we may end up doing that. That way, those of you who never picked up StarCraft and played through the story, or are interested but maybe aren't planning on playing through Legacy of the Void, we'll probably do a series on that. And I think that feels really cool, and I think that was a really good idea from him, because him and I certainly like StarCraft. We're not the best at it, so playing Allied Commander mode, like a duo co-op thing, would be really fun. Plus, I'm really bossy to him, and it would be really funny to see him crack under pressure as we're handling our macro and micro and all that stuff, playing on probably hard or brutal for the entirety of that series, but it would be really quick. If they put out the mode earlier, then you'll see those episodes earlier than the 10th. I just punched my microphone, I'm sorry. The 10th is when the game comes out, when Legacy of the Void comes out, but they may put out the Allied Commander mode for the other two games earlier. That's just my understanding of what might happen. And then we obviously have Fallout 4 coming out on the 10th. That's going to be a long playthrough, which is why I want to get Dragon Age done by then. Possibly do some Just Cause 3 stuff, maybe multiplayer stuff. But that's pretty much like my list of things that are coming out fairly soon that we plan on touching. If you guys have any suggestions for games that you want to see, then let us know. Obviously, Star Wars is going to be a thing, so don't suggest that. If you have any suggestions on what you want to see as far as short games are concerned, let me know. And then obviously with the Patreon stuff, if there's any interest in helping us out with that, then let me know. Because this is, like I said, this year's been really bad for ad revenue, and it's been tight budgeting. Like, I seriously have been budgeting myself down to the cent, and it's tough living. So hopefully, obviously the Skyforge stuff is going to boost our views. I won't get into the details of that, but it's going to be public guides for that community, and yeah, it'll help the channel out a lot. And it's kind of like the next logical step for the channel is to do something along those lines, despite the fact that it's not a brand deal, which I like, because I don't want to accept those. This gets into like ethical integrity of games, and I'm just not down for that. Once again, let us know if you have any game suggestions or suggestions as far as Patreon goes. I'm going to be keeping you guys up to date as we go throughout this crazy season of games over Twitter. And so if you don't have Twitter or anything, it's a really good way for us to communicate with you guys, and that's been the primary way of sending out information and getting feedback almost instantly. So it's been a really good platform as far as that is concerned. And if you were following us on Twitter, you probably knew about that. The final thing that I want to know or want to convey is the live streaming stuff. We tried the YouTube stuff, and it actually works really well, but the next step for us is to stream to both YouTube and Twitch. Just multi-stream it. It's, I mean, it makes a lot of sense to do that, but I did want to focus on the YouTube stuff. We'll probably be doing that with Siege coming up here this next week, so keep an eye on that, maybe, question mark. It's going to get really busy doing these Skyforge videos, because I really got to get towards the end of the game, so I'm grinding that out fairly hard, but I think with all that being said, that pretty much wraps up everything that I needed to talk about. I don't remember anything off the top of my head, but again, if you guys have any questions on stuff that we were doing, then let us know. And I did want to make a point that if you have an older game in mind, that is that 2 to 20 hours range that you want me to play through, then let me know. And I've already considered KOTOR and KOTOR 2. Unfortunately, those are longer games than that and would require a lot more attention, so that's not quite on the list yet, but just letting you know, because I knew that there was going to be some suggestions for that. But with all that being said, I want to thank you guys for continuing to support us. It's going to get really crazy the next few months. We shall see you guys next time.